Hi, it's Alaska Granny. Are you wondering what are the best kind of containers to stockpile extra drinking water for your emergency and prepping supplies? We know that water is one of the most important items that you can stockpile, that you need lots and lots of fresh drinking water. You're also going to need water for other purposes such as dishwashing, hygiene, things like that. If you really think about it, one of the things that we would miss most if it stopped running today would be the water. We need to stockpile at least a gallon a day per person for each person in your family. And the more you can stockpile, the better off you will be. First, you want to look at water that you can buy, that you can bring at home, put it on the shelf, and store it. But you need to think about the different kind of containers that it comes in. If you choose these little water bottles, they're nice for grab and go, but they're not very sturdy. They disintegrate, and if the plastic is breaking down in the container, it may very well be breaking down and adding things into your drinking water. So while it's a good short-term use of water, don't refill these unless you absolutely have no other choice. Try not to store too much in these flimsy water storage bottles. Look on your shelf. You probably have lots of water bottles, water storage containers. So you want to look carefully at the lids. Ones that have a flip-up lid that are like commuter cups, they're fine if you're just taking water for a short drive in your car, but these tend to leak, aren't going to be airtight, so they're not going to keep your water from evaporating. So when you choose some of the water containers from your shelf, make sure you find ones that seal up tight. They have a way that you can store them, and even if they get knocked over, they're not going to spill. Those are going to be great. They're sturdy, they're long lasting. You can fill these bottles up, have water on hand for emergencies rather than just filling up your shelf with empty bottles. Fill them up with something that's useful to you. Bottles that flavored water and sodas come in are much sturdier than the little water bottles. But there is a concern because they do have an odor that remains from the product. If you have ones that were just like a flavored water, usually they don't have any kind of a lingering odor. Fill those up, they're great. If you have something like a soda that has a strong flavor, it's nearly impossible to get the flavor smell out of the bottle. Does that mean you shouldn't use it? Not necessarily. Are you going to need water for flushing the toilet, washing your hands, rinsing a dish? You can still fill these up with water because they're long lasting. Just don't use these as your only reliable fresh drinking water because you aren't going to want everything that you cook or drink to taste like the remnants of the soda. But they're great to fill up and put under the kitchen sink, under the bathroom sink, or store them out of the way, just so you have extra water on hand. That's why it's also great to get heavy-duty containers that held items like vinegar or bleach. They're very sturdy and long-lasting. You can store those full of water. This can also be water that you store away for extra water to have on hand and not necessarily the first water you would go to drink. You can remove the original labels and make sure that you label your water as such so that there's no confusion what you have. You can also store water in your freezer. Then you're going to have the frozen water helping to keep your freezer running as efficiently as possible when it's full. And in a power outage, it'll help the foods remain frozen longer. And then should everything thaw out, you have some containers of fresh water that you can use for drinking, hygiene, or washing. Make it a priority to stockpile water. You can start small with containers you have around the house, and as you have more time, money, and resources, you can buy some 5-gallon, 15-gallon, even 50-gallon water storage containers to make sure that you're going to have the things you need in an emergency situation of all kinds. Having enough water in any kind of an emergency can be a real priority. Make it one of your top prepping goals to stockpile as much fresh water as you can so that your family will have the things they need no matter what comes your way. Learn more at alaskagranny.com. Please subscribe to the Alaska Granny channel.